Well, if there's one thing us landscape photographers don't like too much, it's a blue sky day. So what's the opposite? Torrential rain and wind. Now, you may not necessarily be raising your hand to go and shoot that, but I've got to tell you, there's some unique opportunities that can be found when you go out in adverse weather. Where I live here in Fiordland, we have the iconic Milford Sound, and this is certainly a place that really is inspirational and very humbling in the rain. So that's what I want to do today. I want to bring you guys along to Milford. We're going to jump on a cruise. We've got 150 mil of rain coming down, 6 inches, and that is kind of a typical rainy day for Milford. Right on the coast there, it's quite common to get this amount of rain. So I want to give you a glimpse at behind the scenes of how I've made some of my favorite and my most iconic imagery over the years. We're going to be shooting directly from the boat, trying to capture the amazing waterfalls as they get windswept, the waves. It's just incredible. It's so inspiring. I've done this cruise so many times over the years, and every single time I still get pumped because you never really know what you're going to find. So it's important in your photography to push yourself, to get outside the comfort zone, and don't always shoot the same conditions. You really want to mix things up, and you might actually be surprised at what you can find. So stay tuned after the cruise as well, because I want to show you the raw files of some of these images and what I'll do to work on these, because they are typically very flat and quite different for what we're normally working with in landscape photography because of the lack of light. Anyway, that's enough for now. Let's go jump on the cruise. We'll drive into the national park. We've got the rain coming down, and then we'll take a look at some of the raw files. We're almost there. The weather is just peaking right now. The challenge, especially on the boat, the cruise, it's good to use a telephoto lens to pull in the waterfalls and dramatize everything. But when the rain is coming down very heavy, it gets compressed and it almost looks like noise in the photo. It's hard to get that clarity on the subject matter. That's just one of the challenges with shooting in the rain. Every now and then you might get fortunate where the wind will swing and the clarity will clear up, or the rain will back off. So we'll just see what we can do. Beach weather. Good day to be on the coast. Let's go.
Let's go!
Blake's running late. Alright, we're just running to the cruise. It's always hard to get here on time. You get a bit distracted on the drive-ins, it's so amazing. We get to do a bit of cardio. We're not getting as wet, and hopefully we won't miss the cruise. The key is to don't try and stay dry. You're just going to get frustrated. Just embrace getting wet, and it's going to make your life a lot easier. You can also wear some of these cool outfits as well. Look at this. Really nice. Companies you can go on a cruise with here in Milford. I love using Cruise Milford. Smaller company, local, generally less crowds as well, so make sure you check them out if you come in. Unbelievable. The photography out here on a day like today is a little bit like wildlife photography. It's just action happening every direction. You've got to be watching at all times and reacting, and if you see a composition, it could be good and then gone a second later. So it's incredibly fun. It's very different to how landscape photography may normally be, where you slow down and be methodic. Not at all in this type of scenario. When it comes to the lens choice, you really want to have all your lenses. Telephoto, wide angle. I like the wide angle when I'm picking up the waves in the foreground and then trying to get the tops of the mountains as well. And then the tele's good when we want to zoom in and compress and dramatize the landscape. So you want to have your gear just set up on the inside of the boat, ready to change lenses. If you've got two bodies, even better. But it's just, it's incredible. I love it. One of these cruises now, over 150 times across the past 10 years. I still get excited to come in. It's always different, but it's these stormy days which are truly special. Ah, look at that, man. Whoa! Might be good at the front, actually. Oh, let's run up the front. It feels like needles. Woo! All right, go back. Go back in. Coming up to my favourite part of Milford Sound, some of the waterfalls here when they get windswept. There's a series and one in particular. It's all about getting the timing right though, and hopefully being here as a gust comes through. It's kind of handy to know the skipper and the guys that run the company, so I've asked if we can just slow it down a little bit longer than normal and see if we can score a nice little moment of wind pushing that waterfall into the sky. There we go, look. Got wet. Woo. It's an overload for the system because there's just so much happening and your brain is in creative mode for the entire time. The cruise goes for 2 hours. So it's you actually feel quite exhausted to some degree. It just doesn't stop. One of my tips is to don't be too conservative with your shooting, you know. If you've got an empty memory card, the more frames the better. There's subtle differences between every frame because of the movement on the boat. You don't want to think too much. Obviously you want to align your composition as much as you can, but you know, I've shot a lot of frames today. I'll be lucky if I keep 1 or 2.
So especially if you're not used to this environment, just make sure you're shooting away. Don't try to think about it too much. Just go for it, have fun. Like I said earlier, it's a bit like wildlife photography. When it comes to the settings, you want to be in manual mode. That's what I really recommend you shooting in if you're not already. And the shutter speed is the priority because you're handheld and we're moving around. Just keep that shutter at least 400th of a second, somewhere around there. There's a few factors with your lens length and everything, but if you aim for that 4 to 500th of a second, the f-stop can be wide open to let in some light because we don't have anything close, so you're not worried about depth of field. And then the ISO doesn't have to be too high. 200, 400, somewhere around there. Just got to make sure that shutter speed is fast enough to get the image sharp.
It's an observation I've discovered.
What's that?
3 of them.
3 towers, yes, all right. Aside from the obvious camera, the other must-have are these bad boys, all right? You want a nice microfiber type towel, go to an outdoor or a camping store and just grab a few of these. You guys would have seen my videos before, you know there's another one there as well. So I've got 3 today. On any rainy day, these are my best friends, and it's not really about protecting the camera, it's just about keeping that lens dry. You can just keep wiping it then, you've got a lot more material to work with. You don't want to rely on one of these, all right? This is useless. It'll be soaked after about 30 seconds on a day like today. You've got to come out with a couple of these big fellas.
Thanks for joining us out there, guys. I'm sure you can appreciate that was quite challenging to film, so I apologize for the audio, the water droplets on the lens, but that is just a part of what it's like shooting in these environments. It just gives you a small glimpse, and that was on a boat where we were pretty protected as well. Often I'll be out, not on the boat, but just shooting from the land in those conditions too, which we've got in another video coming up soon. I pulled up at some of the raw files here, and you'll appreciate that a lot of them are relatively dark. Now, the main reason for that is the shutter speed's a priority. We're just trying to make sure that the image is sharp at the end of the day. So I'll have a lower f-stop, and ISO, I still want to keep respectable, 200, maybe 640 if I need to. I'll open up this file here, and this will just give you a quick glimpse. I'll reset that, bang, and it does look quite dark. Look at the histogram though, we've got the bulk of the data in there. So when I bring up the exposure, we're not having to come up too high anyway. Some small shadow recovery, exposure itself. And then one thing I typically like to do in these, to convey that kind of imposing atmosphere, I don't mind cooling them down slightly, just leaning, bringing that subtle blue in on the global temperature. Now it's subtle, but I really like the result. And then sometimes I'll just back off the magenta. For this particular frame, and I will keep one of these in particular, something like this for example, but I'll be just cropping that in slightly so we don't have too much of that background. And yeah, just raising up those dark tones. Even this one for example, actually. Now I'm just grabbing random raw files here, but let's just do a similar thing. We'll raise this one up, drop the highlights, some shadow detail, and then you'll see in this mid-ground area, you know, a lot of this is at the moment just a mid-tone. But if we look closely, the granite is wet and you're getting that slight luminosity on there. So what I'll typically do using a brush, I'll just boost the whites. You've seen me do this time and time again, but this would work wonders on this area, and I'll bring up some highlights there too. Now you're thinking, that didn't do much, Will. Well, if we turn that on and off, before, after, look how subtle that is. That is what we want. When you do your processing, you want to just have subtle adjustments that all slowly work together and build up to then give you one big result. So at the moment, I'm just doing that all over this area now, all through there. Now, for some reason, that density's down. That's why I wasn't doing as much as I expected. So you'll see there I had the density low. I have no idea why that was like that, because most of the time I have that set a lot higher, all the way to 100. So now when I apply, you'll just see before and after what's going on there. Now in this particular frame, I don't want those greens that bright, because I want the eye to flow more towards the waterfall. So if anything, you were just kind of applying a similar effect to a vignette. We're just dropping those greens back. But turn that on and off again, before, after. So it's essentially like dodging. Now let's find maybe a better file to work on, something that might have a bit more in it for us. So this is going beneath Sterling Falls here. Just incredible power, very, very humbling. Yeah, this will be a good one, because what we've got now is the sky as well. So this is where it can really get difficult. Lots of dark midtones, dark shadows. Let's bring the exposure up, and can drop the highlights slightly, but the most of the work we want to do is localize. We want to work on that sky separately from the rest. Don't do a sky selection here, because straight away there's not enough contrast on the edges. So you see it's tried to trace around trees and things, and it's selecting the mountain, it's selecting some of the trees. You've seen me mention this on other videos, but personally what I like to do is zoom out slightly, just use a brush. Feather, flow and density is 100. I'll just pull the highlights back and some exposure. And the edge of the brush is incredibly soft, so as I run down here, if it just skims the mountain like so, it's done hardly anything, because the edge of the brush is getting a small percentage of my adjustments. You're just not going to notice it. But now I've been able to work on the sky like that. If you want to do a sky selection and then delete from the bottom, you can do that. To me, that's kind of, you're adding, knowing that you're going to have to remove, whereas when we brush, you just add and then carry on. Personal preference, there's no right or wrong. Moving forward, again, I do like to just lean into that subtle cool. So you'll see here, just cooling it down. Get the magenta off there slightly. Some small amount of vibrance. Now, this is where it gets real muddy, in this middle area of the frame where the greens just all merge together with the rock. So how do we get some tonal separation? Bring the whites up, bring some highlights up, and then we just start to locally lift some of these details. Now, I'm happy to hit the waterfall there too. Moving forward. So when I'm doing this, I'm working 100% in the moment. I don't always have a specific, I'm only hitting this spot and stopping. I just keep running with it. And you're watching in real time the result, and if you like it, you generally keep running along with it. So now we're doing shadows on this brush. We're just working in this middle area here. I'm going to do another one, K. I push K to get a fresh brush each time. Doing shadows again, but just at less. So I'm lifting the details on the edge now, but much less. I want that darker to lead the eye to the waterfall. If we go brighter like this, it kind of steals the attention. So we just want to, you want to see the details, kind of mimic reality of what you were looking at, but we don't want those details to overpower the main style of the waterfall. Now for that whole left-hand portion of the frame here, I've zoomed out again. I'm just going to now do some mid-tone contrast, which is basically a dehaze, and that will just darken the darker tones in the cloud here, but it won't affect too much else, such as dropping those dark tones, you'll see like that. The other thing you can do is the blacks as well, bring the blacks down, and that's just giving a bit more of that tonal range up there in that cloud, that contrast, but it really helps reinforce the imposing look that we had, the storminess. Cool it down a touch more, small amount of vibrance, and again, like I said earlier, just layering up your brushes. So I think I'll do another one now with some whites and highlights. There's minimal whites and highlights in here, so that's why I've really hit the sliders pretty heavy there. And all this granite all through here, I would apply that too. Now I don't typically zoom in that tight, you can work very liberal. Doesn't matter if we go outside the edges here, not too much, because there's not much whites and highlights to be lifting up anywhere. If we go in the sky, yes, there will be. But on the mountain face itself, now we're going to hit that spray. Look at that, whoosh. I don't mind hitting the ocean too. It's just going to prevent it from looking so muddy. That's what we're trying to avoid in these files, where you're just starting off with one big mid-tone, lots of darks. We're trying to make it more three-dimensional, less muddy for argument's sake. Whoop, I didn't mean to do that. That's L. K, last one. I'm just going to put some light above the, this is exposure now, even off to this side here. Before and after on that. So trying to punch the eye in to the right zones. Let's just reset that entire edit. Bang, bang. It's not complete. I'd let that marinate, come back with fresh eyes. We'll probably do a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, but that just gives you an idea how I pretty much work on most files, but on these ones in particular, we're not dealing with direct light coming in. We're dealing with, bang, like look at that scene. Huge amount of shadows and then a very small amount of midtones there, and we're just trying to get that tonal separation. Let's get some darker tones pulling out. Look at the histogram now. Much more detail in there all the way through. I push done, let it marinate, and then come back later. Now I probably won't keep that one because that's a very kind of standard composition and something I've probably photographed a million times in the past, so it doesn't really stir me up. I'm looking more for this type of imagery these days, just going in tighter, slightly more abstract. Well, not abstract, but less obvious, I guess, is where I'm going. The original one that we pulled up earlier, you know, I'm a sucker for that. I just love the windswept look. But look how many files I have to go through. So I'm not going to run through them now in the video. I just don't have time for that now, and I don't want to bore you guys. But I'll take my time and run through them. If I'm fortunate, I might have one to keep. So hopefully that helps you guys. Hopefully that gets you thinking about heading out in different conditions. You know, we've all got our local areas and local locations that we're probably frequent quite a lot. Challenge yourself and go out in lighting and a scenario that typically you may not think would be good, and you actually might surprise yourself at what you find. And you don't really know till you try. We have a thing we do as landscape photographers where we pre-visualize the ideal shot or what we want to achieve, and then very easily we talk ourselves out of doing it because we're waiting for everything to align and be perfect. It's never going to happen. You just got to get out there and try. It's like fishing. You're only going to catch a fish if you're out there rod in the water. So get out with your camera as much as you can, visit places in a variety of different conditions, and I'm telling you, the fireball sunrise or sunset, yeah, that's fun. That's always going to be fun. But you might find the images that connect with you the most and really express what you're feeling about a place probably won't be those sunrises and sunsets. It might be more something like this. And these stormy conditions, this is how I feel Fiordland. Fiordland has many moods, many different shades. These stormy days are really what moves me and why I love being here. And this is where the bulk of my portfolio is made. It's what I feel, that reverence. When you're in these elements, it's hard not to be humbled and inspired, and then the photography comes so much easier. All right, that's enough talking. Thanks so much for checking out another video. Hope you enjoyed it. Thumbs up, comments and shares go a long way. I want to keep bringing you guys videos and lessons, so please help support the channel in any way you can. It always helps. I'll see you in another video soon.